Welcome to today's webinar on the proposed updates to the Transportation Fund for Clean Air Policies. The draft policies were released on July 17th and are currently open for public comment. The deadline for receiving comments is 4 p.m. on August 22nd, 2025. My name is Jason Newman. I'm a staff specialist with the Strategic Incentives Division, and I will be walking you through today's webinar. I'm joined today by my colleagues Lindy Huey, Cynthia Wang, and Minda Rebecca. Next slide, please. Here are a few housekeeping items before we get started. We will be recording this webinar. This PowerPoint presentation will be uploaded to the website. We will be accepting public comments only through email at grants@baaqmd.gov. During this presentation, if you have any clarifying questions, you can enter them using the QA tool. The questions will be read out loud and answered at the end of this presentation. To avoid any distractions, please ensure you are muted and that your video is turned off. Next slide, please. For today's agenda, I will begin with a brief background on the Air District and the Transportation Fund for Clean Air, or TFCA. Next, I will discuss the objectives and process of updating the policies. Then I will discuss the proposed updates to the TFCA policies, which include changes in the organization of the policies, updates to the recipient and project eligibility, cost-effectiveness limit, administration, and use of TFCA funds. I will then review how to submit feedback and open it up to questions. Next slide, please. So the Bay Area Air District was established in 1955 as the first regional air quality agency in the nation, with a mission to improve air quality to protect public health, reduce historical and current environmental inequities, and mitigate climate change and its impacts. The Air District achieves its mission by regulating stationary sources of air pollution in the 9 Bay Area counties. The Air District also offers grants to public agencies, businesses, and residents to reduce emissions from mobile sources. The Bay Area has made great progress in reducing air pollution, but we do recognize that there's still more work to be done. Next slide, please. Funding for TFCA comes from a $4 surcharge on DMV registrations. So every time a vehicle owner in the Bay Area pays their registration fees, $4 of that registration fee goes to this fund. 60% of TFCA funds are allocated to a pot for the regional fund and Air District sponsored programs. The remaining 40% of TFCA funds are passed through to and are distributed by the 9 Bay Area County Transportation Agencies. The TFCA fund is primarily used to support two types of projects: clean air vehicle projects, which support the adoption of zero-emission vehicle technologies, and trip reduction projects, which reduce emissions by encouraging commuters to reduce single occupancy vehicle trips by using alternative methods of transportation. For the first time, the policies we are discussing today will govern both the use of the TFCA 60% fund and the TFCA 40% fund. Next slide, please. The statutory authority for the TFCA program are set forth in the California Health and Safety Code and requires policies to be adopted and sets the foundation and requirements for the fund. The goal of the TFCA program is to fund projects that cost-effectively reduce criteria emissions from on-road mobile sources. I will discuss cost-effectiveness and the cost-effectiveness limits for various project categories later in this presentation. Another goal is to fund projects whose emission reductions are voluntary and surplus. So, projects that are required by law, such as bringing a substandard facility up to code, would not be eligible for TFCA funding. And projects that have already commenced or would have commenced otherwise without TFCA funding are also not eligible. Another goal is to expend funds within 2 years. This is outlined in the legislation, and the idea behind this is to reduce emissions as soon as possible. Next slide, please. For the first time, we are conducting a significant update to the TFCA program. We are merging the 60% fund and the 40% fund policies, so the Air District as well as the counties will work from the same set of policies. We've taken into consideration feedback from stakeholders from prior years to make the program more appealing and reduce the amount of administrative work, which falls in line with the Air District's strategic plan to reduce barriers to our programs. We've also made proposed updates to streamline the process of adopting policies, which includes making the policies more evergreen. For example, these policies will govern the use of the TFCA funds starting July 1st, 2026 for 1 year or more. We've also made proposed updates to eliminate potential competition between the 60% and 40% fund programs, and to allow more autonomy to counties to tailor their own programs. Next slide, please. The process for updating the policies began in March. We took the initial steps to update the policies based on feedback and input from prior years. Then we met with the counties on a monthly basis to discuss the proposed updates and revisions. The draft policies were then released in July and are now open for public comment until August. After the comment period closes, we will then incorporate comments and draft a final version of the proposed policies to the Air District Grants and Technology Committee for consideration. If recommended, the proposed policies will be brought to the Air District's Board of Directors for adoption. Once the policies are adopted, projects can be awarded as early as July 1st, 2026 by the Air District or the counties. Next slide, please. We've also updated the organization of the policies. Policies 1 through 4 describe eligible recipients. Policies 5 through 9 discuss eligible projects. Policies 10 and 11 describe the administrative requirements. And policies 12 through 17 describe ineligible uses of TFCA funds. Next slide, please. So for policies 1 through 4 regarding eligible recipients, there are no significant changes. However, we do want to clarify that public agencies are eligible to apply for all project categories. Non-public entities are eligible to apply for only clean air vehicle projects and advanced technology demonstration projects. Next slide, please. For eligible projects, policies 5 through 9, we removed the minimum and maximum grant amount per project and per entity, which used to apply to the TFCA 60% fund. We also removed the readiness policy requirement and removed policies for project-specific categories. These proposed updates allow more flexibility for both the counties and the Air District to fund their projects. We also added 2 new project categories: demonstration of congestion pricing of highways, bridges, and public transit, and implementation of rail bus integration in regional transit information systems. Next slide, please. There are significant proposed updates to the policies regarding cost effectiveness. So I will first talk a little bit about what cost effectiveness is and how it's calculated. The cost effectiveness of a project or program is calculated by dividing the amount of TFCA funds awarded to or expended on the project by the sum of 3 criteria pollutants: ROG, NOx, and PM10, reduced by the project during its operational period. Therefore, projects with a lower value and cost effectiveness require fewer TFCA funds to reduce 1 ton of criteria emissions. In other words, a lower numeric value means that the project is more cost effective. Typically, cost-effective projects are highly utilized, involve the operation of zero-emission vehicles, are located in densely populated areas or near activity centers or mass transit hubs, and or are supported with high percentages of matching funds. To maximize the emission reductions achieved using TFCA funds, the Air District has historically established maximum cost-effectiveness limits that projects must meet to be considered eligible. Next slide, please. There are 2 tables now related to cost effectiveness, one for TFCA projects, Table 1, and another for Air District sponsored programs, Table 2. For a full view of both tables, please view the draft policies posted on our website. A snippet of Table 1 is shown here. You will notice that we grouped similar project types together in an effort to streamline the administration process. When grouping, we gave the benefit of the category with the higher cost effectiveness limit, so you will notice some categories will have an increase in the maximum cost effectiveness limit. For example, existing ride-sharing projects have been grouped with existing first and last mile connections. Existing ride-sharing previously had a cost effectiveness limit of $150,000. Now that it's grouped with existing first and last mile connections, it adopts its higher cost effectiveness limit of $250,000. So projects that might not have been cost effective previously may be cost effective in the upcoming fiscal year. We've also received feedback that cost effectiveness limits for some categories should be increased. For example, the cost effectiveness limit for bikeways have been increased from $500,000 to $1 million for projects in priority areas. Additionally, you will also notice that there is now a higher cost effectiveness limit for priority areas across all categories. The cost effectiveness limit for priority areas will be increased by an additional $100,000 per ton for most categories. Priority areas are defined as Assembly Bill 617 communities, Senate Bill 535 disadvantaged communities, and Assembly Bill 1550 low-income communities. For project categories that have cost effectiveness limits in the state's Carl Moyer program, such as on-road zero-emission vehicles, a note has been added to the table. For these categories, the value for non-priority area projects may increase annually to align with adjustments made to the Carl Moyer program guidelines adopted by the state. Air district sponsor programs, like the Vehicle Buyback Program or the Clean Cars for All program shown in Table 2 of the policies, might also see an increase in cost effectiveness annually to align with the state's Carl Moyer program. Next slide, please. For administration policies 10 and 11, there were no significant changes. Counties and project sponsors are still required to expend the TFCA funds within 2 years and maintain appropriate insurance. Next slide, please. For policies 12 through 17, ineligible use of TFCA funds, both profit and remanufactured or refurbished vehicles, equipment, and parts were added as ineligible uses of TFCA funds. This concludes the high-level proposed updates to the policies. Next slide, please. As mentioned before, the public comment period is now open for TFCA fund policies, commencing fiscal year ending 2027 until August 22nd, 2025. You can view a copy of the draft policies on our website. To submit comment, please email grants@baaqmd.gov with the subject heading Comments-TFCA Policies Commencing Fiscal Year Ending 2027. Next slide, please. This now concludes today's webinar. We are going to give an additional 5 minutes for folks to enter their questions before we proceed to the Q&A portion of this webinar. So we're going to give another minute to for folks to enter their questions, and then I'll begin reading them and answering them. Okay, so do have a few questions, so I'm going to start reading and answering them. So question one, if you have a countywide program, how do you calculate what amount is in priority areas for cost effectiveness versus not in priority areas? Or would it just be considered not priority by default? Does a project need to be 100% within a priority area to be considered for the higher cost effectiveness limit? So that's a great question. We can provide guidance on what percentage the project would need to meet in order to count as benefiting a priority area. So we'll take that into consideration when we're doing our revisions. Next question is, has the cost effectiveness of e-lockers been increased since a shared bike e-locker can serve 10 times more users than a single user locker? Bicycle parking remains at $250,000 for non-priority areas. There is a new cost effectiveness limit for priority areas, and that is 350K per ton. So our next question is, has any adjustments been made to the charging of staff time to TFCA projects? Right now, the administrative costs is still limited to 6.25% based on the legislation. There's not been any changes to this. And the last question is, can you explain the removal of the readiness section of the prior policies? Projects will no longer need to commence by a certain time period. So the
Yes,
removal of
I could answer
okay,
this question.
okay, go
So
ahead.
so that Hi, this is Linda Hui. So that is correct. We removed the readiness policy to allow more flexibility to both the air district and the counties to fund their projects. So there is no requirements of when projects need to start, but there is a requirement that the funds need to be expended within 2 years. So the counties and the air district, when they open their own solicitation, they may put additional requirements to make sure that the funds can be completed within 2 years. And that may be that, there is a commencement date. But currently in the policies, there's no readiness policy.
Great, thanks, Linda. So that was our last question. So thanks everyone for joining today's webinar. Again, if you want to submit your comments, please email the grants inbox at grants@paaqmd.gov. And that will conclude today. Thanks, everyone.